Alright, cool. Hey everybody, it's Narrative Tarot. I'm between the black void and the ever loving light. I'm between two worlds. So it's 2021. I'm still confused from the last video where to look for the camera, but so 2020. Let's wrap up some things I personally ended up doing and I'm looking into now. So if you don't know this channel, there's a few other videos before I got discouraged and left. I just went off to focus on some other shit in my life, like that I was really unhappy about, so I needed to focus on that. I don't know if I updated, but mid 2020-ish, I quit my job out of the blue. Well, it wasn't out of the blue. I was mad. So I was mad. I felt undervalued. And I was just like, fuck this shit. And just like left. Looking back on it, I had to process a lot of things regarding it, forgiving myself for feeling like I had gotten out of character, forgiving other people because I felt like they just weren't good. And that took a lot, and I'm still working through that. I don't forgive or forget easily, so that's going to be a thing for my whole spiritual journey for like the rest of my life. I don't forgive easy. I don't forget. And that's something I've been working through. So 2020 has been me, especially the later portion, working through it. Then I had some financial things going on, and I had to like, then you quit your job because you're angry and stuff like that, and then like something rebounds on you, and you're like, oh. It's kind of like, aren't you supposed to get them? Like, aren't you supposed to like the assholes? Like, get them. Like, why are you getting me? Like, why aren't you putting energy out there towards them? And then you just kind of realize, like, are you any better than the people that you claim were like down there? Did you stoop down there? So I had to like work on that and get myself. And I'm a Leo moon. Even though I'm a 12th house Leo moon, I'm still a Leo moon. So I'm still like quick fuse and like anger and like I'm a Cancer sun, Cancer Mercury, Leo moon, and I'm a Virgo rising. So Virgo and Cancer are kind of testy, and then like Leo just like sets it off. Especially 12th house where like you're in the water and like reflected light just shines everywhere, and you're like. Everything is upsetting me now. Everything. Like someone coming towards you to help you. The glint on your like your your shield, your armor, because you're a knight in shining armor. I'm gonna slap you because you're like fucking getting near me. So it's it's a lot. It was just a lot mentally. Like it's a mental thing with me. A lot of shit mentally that I just like but that was the like shit fest in the middle of the year. The beginning of the year was actually pretty nice. I got into a little fender bender that was my fault in 2019, and I was waiting for a car, and like my family, we were doing that, and luckily that got resolved. Rolling to 2020, I was just saving up money and taking classes. So 2020 started off with me taking courses. So I took sound healing. I went to a studio in DC, and then I took Reiki, Usui 1 and 2, Holy Fire 1 and 2. And I'm going to talk about my experience with Holy Fire 1 and 2 and the Usui in this video. I think I'm going to do the Kundalini in the next one because I ended up taking that one like 3 months ago. So let me tell you my experience with Usui and Holy Fire Reiki. So 2020, I took Reiki, and it was the beginning of a journey that I've now decided to go into massage therapy. And so there's a reason for that, and that's another video that I might do after this because I don't want this to be too long. But I did 3 Reikis last year. So I took Reiki because I had taken a Udemy course and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what I was learning about. I enjoyed chakras. I learned about colors, things like that, correspondences with colors. I'm not one who deep dives into any subject. I learned that about myself. I just kind of reconciled that. There's a lot of Leo pride that I had to get over. You're not as deep as you think. You're not as solid as you think when it comes to certain things, and not necessarily knowledgeable or willing to be knowledgeable or the ability to be knowledgeable. You just aren't. So I've just had to come to terms with that. But I like studying a lot of things. I'm more of a generalist than a specialist. But I decided to take not a real course, because the teacher's a real teacher. She's in Australia, I believe, and she did the certification. But I never finished the course fully, but I was intrigued enough to do an in-person session with someone. There's no way in hell I'm going to Australia. Now I definitely am, we can't. I guess I could, but look, it's wild. I'm from the US, so it's wild as shit. I'm not going anywhere else. So I wanted in-person classes. I went to the lesson, and it happened to be at the massage school that I'm pursuing going to. So I wanted to see the school, so it let me see the school and then meet somebody that was from the institution. So I take the class. Usui 1 and 2, cool. Usui is just the basic baseline. It's where all of the descendants come from as far as Reiki. It's the first one. It's the one that the master talked about. He learned. Hold on. So I have this. It's my booklet. So it's basically the origins of it, the basic symbols, things like that. So it just basically gives you some basic overview. So Reiki, 2 Japanese words, Rei meaning brother spirit, and Ki, which is a life force. If you know Chinese, you know Qigong, life force and stuff like that. Similar, I guess, to a concept of prana, things like that. So it just basically talks about the origins of it. There was the first Reiki master. He went out into the wilderness and brought back this gift of Reiki, essentially, and started teaching. And there's a lady in here, last name Takada, last name I believe, who ended up teaching throughout, I don't want to say the world, but I know she was big in Hawaii, and there's a Japanese population in Hawaii. So she ended up doing Reiki. And so the evolution of Reiki, there's different branches. So some of the branches you may know is the Usui course, Karuna, Kundalini, the Sekim. There's different branches, and each one has its own energy, kind of vibe to it. And I believe that also what you're seeking becomes apparent, or what you need to learn becomes apparent when you jive with certain ones. So your spiritual abilities become awakened. Depending on what your spiritual abilities are, you may not need the same Reiki as someone else. So, if you need certain aspects that only the Sekim one, the Egyptian one, is going to open, that's the one you probably are going to feel called to. And if you're just someone who wants to experiment, then you might awaken different things, or nothing may happen. I don't know. I can't speak for you. But I was just interested in Usui, and this one was a Usui Holy Fire. Now the thing with Holy Fire Reiki is, so William Rand, he's a big kind of name in these spiritual circles, particularly with Reiki. I think he's written books. I think he has a website and stuff like that. I didn't get too deep into it. Again, I'm not a deep diver. But he ended up doing something called Holy Fire. So the way Reiki works is you go to the workshops and you get attuned by the person who's teaching, right? The master, the Reiki master that can teach. The thing with Holy Fire is it's not that there's no leader there overviewing or watching. It's just instead they're reading something, and then you get attuned yourself. So that's the difference between the two that I had. One was she physically was like around me, attuning me, and then the second one, we were listening to the meditation and what she was saying, and then we settled in, and then whatever we needed to receive as far as Reiki, received it, and that's how we attuned. So Usui, I didn't feel anything. I'm gonna be real. I didn't feel anything. Like everybody else in my class, there was only 4 people in my class, including one of the instructors from the school, and other people were massage therapists. It was the instructor, a teacher from the school, a massage therapist or something like that, and then another lady. And so it was a small thing. And be prepared to do small classes with Reiki. You know, it's not like regular school where it's like 50 of you guys in school. So I did the attunement, got attuned. I didn't feel anything. Yeah, like I didn't feel anything at all. I'm really thinking, I'm like, I really didn't feel anything. Like, I felt nothing. I was really trying to reflect on like, what was my experience with Usui? Nothing. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel attuned. I didn't feel light. I didn't feel anything. I will say we did meditations to where I was grounded, so I felt very relaxed, very slumped over, relaxed, grounded. But the Usui, I didn't feel like, oh my God, like all this stuff. Because people were saying they were seeing colors, and they were feeling this, and they were feeling that. And I was like, I don't feel anything. So I was like, okay, like I'm like the outlier here. Everybody was like, yeah, and I felt so calm, and I could feel this, and it cleared my that, and I'm just, all right. So it was pretty calm. I felt, cool. And then we did Holy Fire Reiki. So Holy Fire Reiki is what set it off for me. And I'm going to tell you right now, that one like shifted me. Like, and it's not like this big spiritual massive shift, but what I'm going to say is this. When we did the meditation, my like right foot started not to burn, but it started to like twitch a lot. And so started to twitch, and then my whole body started getting involved, and it was just like I needed not to dance, but it was just like my body was like twitching. And then I started like moving my arms and stuff like that. So I started doing like this, and I was like all over the place. And I felt specifically on this side, like it was trying to pull, I think, energy out so that it could fully integrate in my body. I'm trying to figure out where I'm looking at. I'm sorry. So I was like doing all like this, and then I would dip down, and all of this would empty out. And then I had an experience where I started sniffing. And so I started sniffing, and I started feeling my body. And what I can attribute it to is I felt like I wanted to blurt out, I have a body now. Like, I have a body now. Or like, is this what a body feels like now? Something akin to that. And I started sniffing a lot. And I wanted to get up and feel what it felt like to be in a human body again. That's what I felt. I felt like after this experience of Holy Fire especially, like I didn't just have me anymore. Like I had someone in my body. It's so hard to explain, and it's so like, but if you're on this side of YouTube, like, Are you really weirded out? Do you really want to click off? You don't. So I just felt like someone was in my body. And that was the first session. The second session was better because I was already acclimated to it. But the Holy Fire Reiki is what really shifted it for me. Really, just making sure the time. Really shifted it for me. Essentially, I started what you would call glossolalia. Glossolalia. Essentially, it's a kind of a phenomenon where you can attribute it to speaking tongues. I'm not religious, but you can attribute it to speaking tongues, or you could attribute it to speaking in like syllables, words that are not comprehensible by like known language, right? So my second lesson in Holy Fire Reiki is when I started speaking it, and I was on the interstate highway trying to get to the school, and I was driving, and I was like fussing like you do in traffic when you're like, hurry the up, like beep beep, like you're trying to get somewhere. And I just remember starting to just sprout out all of this stuff. And the whole way there, I was speaking like this. And I was in the car when I parked because I got there a little early, and I was just speaking. And I was just speaking. And then I was just speaking. But in my mind, I saw two people, and I saw them specifically from Asia. One looked like an older man, one looked like a woman. But the man in my mind, I still see him. He's like on the shore. Like, they're both dead. So I'm like, they seem like they were alive. They don't seem like they're like just like a presence, like an energy. They seem like they actually had physical bodies and that they were alive. And when I was speaking this glossolalia, it was coming to my mind that they were like, yeah, like we were very surprised that we ended up being your guides because we're not from where you're from and you look different, but that's okay. And we're not going to be the last ones that come through. We're like the first of many. And, you know, feeling like protected and guided. And they were just explaining like all of this. Like, because for those of you who don't know, I took a year of Mandarin. They was like, why do you think you were attracted to that kind of stuff? Why do you think that, like, you know, you like this kind of stuff? Is because you're connected to us and we're from that place and we're your guides. Or we're going to be the beginning of this, right? Because I don't really intersect with them too much anymore. Like, I feel like they started it off and then they left. And now, like, there's other things coming through that it's a lot, but there's other things that are coming through now. And so they kind of started off. I feel like they pop in, particularly the man pops in every now and then. When I need to do something. If you ever like listen to a Korean drama where like there's an older guy that's kind of like testy and he's like bossy and he kind of like yells at people and stuff, that's what I take it to, because I was trying to figure out the language. And this is where glossolalia comes in. If you start to speak that, one, just make sure that like, well, I don't know if you will be able to gauge this within yourself, but just make sure you're not in a mentally fragile state. You're relatively stable, because I feel like with glossolalia, there is a group of people who say it's a sign of like schizophrenia and like mental illness, and then there's other people who are like, no, this is like speaking in tongues because there's a religious tradition. And then there's people who are like spiritual without the, you know, religious part, that are like, no, it's kind of like a proto language, or it's kind of like consciousness coming through in its purest form through you, and that language itself divides you, and kind of more like your soul isn't as fragmented when you're speaking this. It is the purest you that you could have. and the purest you that you can have, in essence, doesn't necessarily have linguistics the way that we as humans have it. And I read that, and I was watching videos about it too, but I kind of find that to be true. I can get the glossolalia part from the schizophrenia part. Like, yeah, like my family history does have mental illness. So, and I find it interesting. Maybe I'll explore that later. Like, people who do have spiritual abilities, what is their family like in terms of mental illness? Like, you know, how do they deviate from mental illness? Stuff like that. But after that, I just ended up being able to speak it. I'm gonna say for glossolalia, for me, it's not like, oh, I'm speaking and everything is just so great. Like, no, like you can cuss somebody out or fuss somebody out in this too. It just depends on your range. For me, I feel like whenever I just need to express something like a frustration and I can't get it out, one, I cry. So I know that my throat, I have throat chakra. That's like a main chakra for me. Throat chakra blocks up a lot. So I know that it blocks up a lot, and I know that it takes a lot from me to express myself. So I feel like glossolalia kind of like gets around that, and I'm able to express myself even if no one around me knows. I know, and what I'm working with knows. And yeah, that's basically it for my experiences with it. So I've been doing glossolalia like all the time. I don't need to meditate, I don't need to trance. I can go into it and out of it. But generally it comes through when I'm happy, or I'm describing something, or I'm watching something and I either agree or disagree, and it's like it just comes from the core. I don't really feel anything. My head used to actually kind of buzz a little bit or feel like it was vibrating before I needed to get a message in, and that stopped after a while. But that wasn't related to 2020 per se. It just ended up, being something. So that is my glossolalia, Usui, Holy Fire Reiki experience, and just wrap up the 2020 and how I kind of made the decision to do this. And so after this, the next video will basically be about my Kundalini one, because I found that one was a little lighter than Holy Fire. I think Holy Fire is guns blazing, yo, and not everybody wants to start with that, but I find that I guess I was ready for it. So, what can you do when the gods want you to do things? Do you ignore them so you can get your ass kicked later, or do you do it right then and there? I try to run, and it doesn't work out so well. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.